So that what that represents basically is there's an acceleration of enlightenment. More people are seeking enlightenment, okay? Now when things accelerate, that means there's also an acceleration of karma.
Right.
Which means there's a results for your actions, okay? Now, it's...
now, if you're speaking of karma, you have to be thinking of, you believe in the past lives.
Oh, yeah. I've relived a lot of my
You've lived a lot of lives.
Oh, yeah. And a lot of my clients have on the table, all of a sudden they'll flip into a past lifetime issue that's affecting this lifetime, either in the physical or the mental, emotional, or even spiritual, okay? And some of them has been Christians and went, but I don't believe in past lives. But
is that right? So even a Christian person, you've had them
oh, yeah.
working with you, and then they'll do that. But what is it in you that takes them there? You have some special...
I think the biggest key thing is safe space.
Okay.
Number one, a lot of people want to study with me and say, how do you do what you do? I say, I just love everybody. And you know what? They know it. It's not the baloney. Let's go tiptoe through the tulips, you know, love, love, love. So it isn't that. It's acceptance. I accept the person right here, right now, in the moment, in this moment in time.
Well, I can speak to that, Jim, because you're right about that. You carry an energy about you. I have only met you once before, and I knew I wanted you to come on my show. You do have that all-encompassing, all-accepting, like you say, loving energy. And I feel that.
It's acceptance, and it's also honoring one another. You know, that you hear them use the term namaste, okay? That basically means the God self in me recognizes and honors the God self in you, that we're all equal. Children love me because I treat them like a real human being, okay?
Right. Because of course you might even believe that if they're old souls.
Right, and I work with millionaires. I work with people that, to pay for the treatment, they might give me a pack of cigarettes, you know, that we talk about giving you tobacco, okay, for the shaman, or crystals, or even fix me supper, you know. So it's the acceptance of that person, and then you make it a safe space. You can feel these feelings, okay, that you've never wanted to feel before, because that's how the subconscious covers things up. A lot of course, sexual abuse issues come up in treatments, and I've worked with psychotherapists to help them access the person's issues. I've given demonstrations to PhD psychotherapists, given talks in a few colleges about the way the mind, body, spirit works together, because the shaman's job is to help the spirit get born.
Right.
Help them find their path, not the path I think they should be on, but their path, okay, for self-empowerment. And that's why women are coming in so much more power now. It's all about the feminine coming into their own individual power, and then helping them go through life, and then helping them cross over. It's like nobody knows how to die nowadays. You know, everybody's afraid of dying.
And how do you get an invitation to do that? You're talking about speaking to people who would have more traditional views of Western medicine, but yet they're asking you to come in and talk to them about some of this philosophy.
Well, the one time in Topeka, it was a young lady come up and asked me, and then she says, I was at a spirit supper, and she says, they tell me you're a shaman. And I said, well, just don't squeeze the shaman. And I said, why? She said, well, a friend of mine is...
She wasn't that cute, Jim?
Yes, she was.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, I just say if you squeeze the shaman, he'll squeeze back.
There you go.
But anyhow, a friend of hers was going to have brain surgery to cut the synapses going to the face because of face pain. Oh. Chronic face pain for 20 years. Okay. And could I do anything to help her? I said, well, sometimes the magic works, sometimes it doesn't. So we arranged for a treatment, and with my hand basically one under her head and the other one about 3 foot above the head, I'm doing energy, and I found the places where the synapses were basically fried or whatever. There's medical terms, but who cares?
Right.
So I found that place, released what we would call in Chinese medicine static qi, and just with my hand, and all of a sudden her face changed, the pain stopped for the first time in 20 years, and they canceled the surgery. And that was 20 years ago, and it never did come back. Never
came back. Now, when you're doing that, you're not actually touching the person. You're
no,
feeling something.
Yeah,
and tell us more about how this is transmitting from you or healing the person.
You're working with what the Chinese call qi energy. Japan, they call it ki. Yoga people call it prana. Darn, I can't think of what the people in Hawaii call it. But all different tribal people in the beginnings always understood that there was another kind of energy around us, you know. It's basically the energy from the Creator, okay? Now, that creates the creation. You want to understand God or understand the Creator, why don't you start paying more attention to the creation?
Well, that's a really interesting comment, because I kind of resonate with that whole. I feel that when I'm personally, this is my own personal feeling, when I'm personally being more creative, I feel more in touch with the Creator. And is your God different than what a Christian God might look like or see?
Oh, not really.
You obviously have studied a lot of other religions.
I use the Bible a lot because there's so much profound wisdom there. What Christians are mostly afraid of is there's one scripture they're really afraid of, and that's where Jesus said, "Marvel not what I do, for even greater things than this shall ye do."
Oh, wow.
Okay, so people understand that when you become one with the light, you are the light, and basically the light or the energy that the life force is going through me to the other person. It's not my energy.
So you're the conduit.
Right. I barely had enough energy to get out of bed this morning, okay? So it's all about tuning into the life force which created the creation. And of course, we're now, and we always have been, in the time of acceleration. In order for E to equal mc squared, in order for that, in fact, Einstein didn't even like it, but he had to have the cosmological constant, which means energy, the universe not only expanding, but it's accelerating. So is time and space, so is your karma, so is your issues, so is your opportunities for enlightenment. Look at all the records.
So why are we in this form of acceleration? Is there a spiritual message in that?
Yes, everything is a process.
Okay. I would see that, or a journey. Sometimes people call it a journey.
Right, so everything's in a process, and planet Earth, I mean, right here where we're standing, we can go dig up ocean fossils, okay? This used to be an ocean, folks. So everything is in constant change, thank goodness, and it's all about the opportunity to become one with the Creator. Most people are afraid of God.
Don't you think some religions have done that a little bit?
Well, if you're afraid you're going to go to some kind of a fiery hell, or if you do this, God's going to kick your butt. What? How can you ever be perfect?
Right.
You see that's the illusion.
You fear perfection.
That's the illusion.
You feel you can only have salvation if you have perfection.
And
who can accomplish that? Who can ever achieve that?
That's what Christ came to do. And it's like I said. I hear a while back, everybody's a light. E equals mc squared. Okay, that means energy equals mass times the speed of light. Okay, so an atomic bomb is basically taking the physical matter and turning it into light. Well, I'm sorry, folks, but in true science, you reverse that, and light turns into physical matter. That's why we are more of an expanding Earth concept here, because we're getting more energy from the sun. Every time there's a big old CME, boom, the planet gets bigger around. It goes to the core. So it's the same thing with you and your light. As you're processing the light basically comes right about where your hair curls, goes through the body, through all these different circuits, goes to out your feet to the center of the earth, comes back up and out. So that's gravity draws the light. Light beam slows down out of space when it goes past the planet, let's say. Okay. Well, what balances light is levity, which doesn't mean to bounce your head on the ceiling. It means to glow. Christ was biluminous on the mount.
Right.
The Buddha had innumerable golden rays of light coming from your body. And I was telling this to a guy in Houston, and I realized he was a Jew, and I said, and Moses came off the mountain with his face glowing. Okay, we got something for
Look
everybody.
at every one of these religions.
Yeah, so
can you see my aura as I sit here? Are you able to visualize auras?
No, but I can certainly see your, I read your whole energy field, so to speak. In fact, I have to tune it down. I don't want to know everything.
Right.
Okay. But you have
so what's that telling me? You can read my energy field. Tell me more about that.
Well, you have a tremendous amount of energy, enthusiasm for what
Only
you're
say
doing.
Something good here.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, energy and enthusiasm, okay, and a lot of curiosity.
Yes.
And along with that curiosity comes a little bit of a doubt, because you have a belief system that says certain things are true and certain things are not true. You don't believe in ghosts until you see your first one.
Okay.
You don't believe that trees can talk to you until the first tree talks to you.
Wow. And a tree could talk to
me,
you,
yeah. And when
What's
it does,
you
go,
say?
Well, I'll tell you what, right here in Salina one time, I stopped to explain to a lady the kind of therapy I did. So, of course, I went in the front door and sat down with this sofa, and we're visiting. I kept hearing this plant in the kitchen yelling, I need some water. So I said, do you have a plant in the kitchen? She says, no. I said, okay. We keep talking, and the plant keeps really yelling. I said, hey, I really need some
You're
water.
Sitting in the other room, and you're hearing the plant. Give me a drink, give me a drink.
And so I said again, are you sure you don't have a plant in the kitchen? Well, what do you mean? Well, it's a plant that needs some water. She says, oh my gosh. She jumps up. She was short. We go in the kitchen, and she knew I'd never been in her kitchen before, right? We
That's
go in her
right.
kitchen. Well, she had somebody given her a plant. She put it on top of the refrigerator and couldn't see it. So I got the thing down. It's all dry, all kind of goes, ugh, you know. She takes it over, puts water in it. She turns around, looks at me. Her eyes big around a sausage. She says, "Who are you?" You know. And I said,
Wow.
well, you know,
Who
they tell
are
you to
you?
talk to your plants. You're also supposed to listen. So yeah, plants do talk.
But
to
how
you.
could one of us even hear that? Where does our energy have to go to hear something like that?
Pay attention.
Really?
Take a look at what you don't hear what your kids say.
Yes.
Look what you don't hear what people will tell you. If you listen, they will tell you. If a doctor would listen to the patient, they'll tell them what's wrong with them.
Because I think innate people know what's going on.
Psychotherapy
Right.
issues. I could work with a lady one time, and before we started the treatment, she said, "Jim, in a relationship," she said, "I'll be with a guy for 3 weeks, 6 weeks, it's gone, and there's another one, and there's another one." I thought, "Oh yeah, life's that way sometimes." Well, in the process of working with her, doing craniosacral therapy, I've got her neck off the table, we're moving it very slow. All of a sudden, if we had a camera, it was twisting all over the place. So what was happening was the body was reliving the memories from the past where she had been attacked in the middle of the night in her bedroom.
Wow.
The guy tried to kill her, and in fact, she ended up was partially scalped, okay? And so
Now,
we got
is this in a
in.
past life?
No, this was just
Oh my
like
gosh.
5 years before, see?
Okay.
And so here comes all this fear and anger. Anger at men and fear of men, all
Right.
right? Well, you know, a dog knows if you're afraid or angry, because when you're afraid or angry, you become unpredictable. all
Well, we're
right?
going to take a quick break here,
Okay.
Jim, but I want to come back to that and hear more about that story because, you know, she obviously had a very powerful moment. And we'll take this little break, be back with Jim. This is Joan with the Joan Jerkovich Show. Sometimes it's hard to take those stops and breaks.
Sure, that was a good time to do it.
But
Yeah.
that was, wow. I was thinking that was from a past life.
No.
So that was her current life. But she had to have known that had some relation to some of those problems with her. People just,
People don't. That's why you
they-
have psychotherapy. They bury it.
yeah,
Why? It hurts.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, I can see that too.
We'll give you the rest
We'll
of the
let
story when you
Cerise,
keep it on.
yeah, we'll let Cerise pick us back up and. Let us know when you're ready.
It's just saving.
Okay, so you're good?
Not quite.
Okay.
So still finish up.
That was fast. We're gonna do 8 minutes. It's gonna be really fast. Yeah. I think I could just sit and talk with you for 2 hours.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, because you're a talker for one.
Answer your question.
Yeah.
Okay,
Exactly.
anytime.
This is Joan with the Joan Jerkovich Show. We're back with our guest, Jim Haynes, who's an energy worker. We just got talking about a woman he was working with who was on a table asking about why she had so many problems with the relationship, and he was able to take her to a place where she'd had some past trauma. Let's get back to that story.
Yes, actually, it was just conversation about, before we started the treatment, it was just conversation. That's where I said people will tell you what's going to happen if you learn how to listen. So when I was doing the treatment, your body will go through the same movements of the trauma, whether it's this lifetime, reliving your birth, or a past lifetime issue. It's called samskars. Anyway, so in other words, as the body was going back through those same movements, that triggered the memory of the issue. Okay? And then,
But you said her head started
oh
turning
man,
and
because she was
writhing.
reliving the way the guy was
The
trying
guy-
to choke her to death.
yeah, right.
So then what happened is I get her breathing and relaxing, into the okay, you're safe, blah, blah, blah. Well, it all has to do with forgiveness. Now, forgiveness, what you have to do you think this guy did it out of unconditional love? Of course not.
Oh, no.
Of course not. So forgiveness is based on unconditional love and understanding that forgiveness and acceptance doesn't mean approval. This was wrong, okay? But as you
Right.
understand, this other soul didn't have a clue about love. It's trying to figure out the planet too. So as she was able to forgive him, send him forgiveness from the heart, then she had this whole shift in her body, okay? And she was able to understand that. And here's the rest of the story.